Hello, everybody. Welcome to my top three favorite mediums. I'm Marissa Sweet. I am an award winning artist and plein air instructor. I've been teaching for 20 years now. I think 2024 was my 20th year, so 2025 would be 21 years now. So, my God, it's been a while. And it's a lot of trial and error. As you know, painting is a journey. And with that journey, I just share what I've learned to help you and my fellow followers who love creating avoid mistakes. But you got to make mistakes because it's the best way to learn, right? So my journey started in grade school. I started with poster paint. I don't know if you know what poster paint is. It's really watercolor, and graduated right away into oil with no background at all. Just decided I'm going to paint in oil. So I bought a kit and I started to play with that with actually baby oil. So my paint never dried. It never dried for probably 10 years because I didn't know what I was doing. But anyway, I just wanted to learn. And so I started learning on my own in between going to school and taking a degree in economics. And yes, so been in the corporate world for 20 years until I got um, laid off per se and decided to uh, continue painting until I got a part-time job at an art store at Curry's, and that's where I met some of you, like Julia there, Linda. I think I met you at Curry's, Mary and Judy. Oh my God! So it's been a long journey, and after working there for 13 years, um, at the same time I was teaching as well, and then I just started teaching everywhere. You could find me everywhere, and then before getting burnt out, right, Christine? Because COVID happened. And when COVID happened, I got to really relax and change my approach in teaching. And so now I teach more online. And so here I am, and I'm meeting new friends as we go along. So that's a little bit about me, because I could keep going on, right? But we won't. So let's see here. Let me see. I'm gonna. Oh, you see yourself, right? It is a water-based polymer resin with pigment. So it is a resin with pigment, so they're all together, and it's water-based. So it's really, it dries by evaporation. Acrylic comes in different varieties. So you have heavy body, you have fluid, you have ink, spray, and airbrush. Ready? It's compatible with many substrates like canvas, paper, fabric, plastic, stainless steel, and various metals. Once it dries, you cannot reactivate this anymore. So it's not like watercolor that you can open it up by adding some water and you can scrub a little bit of it and you can reactivate the paint. Once acrylic dries, it's permanent. It's resistant to UV light, so I still recommend you varnish. That's another topic because there's so many varnishes. But I still recommend you varnish after you finish painting. But it in itself, acrylic, is already resistant to UV. That's why they use this a lot when they paint murals outside. And again, it's low odor, so it's great for those who have sensitivities um, to oil. And so because it comes in a low odor, it's also easy to use in a closed area. And for those who have allergies, it's very good for them. It won't interfere. So my three favorites are glazing medium, retarder, which is also known as slow dry medium, or regular gel, and regular gel. So why use a medium? Many people say I paint with water and acrylic and it works fine. I paint with a medium because it keeps all the colors united and harmonized. And it makes your painting look more even, and it makes your painting look more enhanced. If you just paint with water and acrylic, sometimes it could look a little bit weak and it could look uneven in areas. So you have to keep adding color. And so you're actually painting a lot more with the pigment, and you won't be able to get some transparencies, which is why I like to use medium, because it allows you to paint with many layers and you can control the transparency with it. So I'm going to explain that because, I think the best way to learn is by watching and doing. When you're just listening to it, I could lose you already very quickly. So I just answered that. Why do I use that? So the mediums can also control the drying factor, so you could extend the blending time, and it also allows you to save on your very expensive paints. Like if they're series 6 and they're already, I don't know, $28, which could be more now, then using a medium will help you economize. So we'll talk about glazing medium first. And this is a big topic because there are many of my students who get glazing after 3 years, after 5 years, after 10 years. So glazing is applying a color, normally transparent color, on top of a color that's dry. So it's wet on dry. Wet paint on a dry surface. Okay. Bear with me. Okay. Glazing medium. So it enhances the color underneath, and I'm gonna demo that. It mixes color without mixing, and you're like, what? I'm gonna demo that. And then it changes the hue. Now, glazing medium comes in different finishes and different sheens. You have the gloss, you have matte, and satin. So I'll explain that first. Gloss is transparent. So when it dries, you only see your pigment color. You don't see the gloss medium. Matte is translucent. So just imagine you wearing a veil. You can see what's underneath the veil, but there's a sheen. So that's a matte. And it doesn't dry with a glossy finish. So it's kind of flat. Satin is a mixture of the gloss and the matte. It's also translucent, so it's not transparent. That's why I like the gloss, because it's transparent. You see the color immediately. Okay, so that's a lot, right? That's already a lot of information. Okay, so I hope you can see my palette, Linda.
Yes, we can. Sorry.
Okay. So I have Hansa yellow here. I have quinacridone red here. And this is phthalo blue red shade. Here is your acrylic glazing liquid with the gloss finish because it's transparent. So I use Golden. Golden is the first acrylic company that formulated their mediums specifically for fine artists, fine art. So for fine art. And this was developed in the early 40s, just after the war. So for me, it is the best out there. So for acrylic, I pretty much choose Golden. But I also use a Canadian brand, which is TriArt. So I'll talk about that later. Okay. So it enhances the color underneath. So this, as you can see, this one here, this was just painted with water. Can you see that there are areas that are rough, right? So that's why I just don't paint with water. I paint with a medium because you can really smooth this whole thing. And it comes out a little bit nicer. So when it enhances the color underneath, this is quinacridone magenta. So I'm just gonna add that layer there. So it already made this so much nicer. So when this dries, it dries all together. It will still dry by evaporation, but the medium's gonna hold the pigments tighter, and so it won't come out like this. It's all gonna dry more or less at the same time. That's why I like to use a medium. So that's glazing liquid. So now you wait for that to dry and you could paint on top of that again. But we'll wait. We'll wait for that to dry because again, glazing medium is wet on top of dry. So it's wet on top of a dry surface. So you have to make sure that your surface is dry before you apply again. So the next one was it mixes color without mixing, and that was like, what did she just say? So let's pick this up again. I always add my medium and then I just load up my brush again because you only have to use very little medium with paint. So this is yellow and this is red. So yellow and red, usually what color do they make? They make orange, right? This is not attendance. So that's mixing without mixing because you're not mixing the two colors together. You're glazing on top of a color that's dry. So I don't know if you saw that, but I put quinacridone red on top of the yellow, and here you have your orange. Right? So it's almost like you're mixing without mixing because you're just applying. It's so cool. It's like magic, right? So this is where color theory plays a huge part in your painting journey. And sometimes you could glaze a color upon a color and then you'll find, wow, I discovered something new, which is kind of fun. So let's go and see what happens if I put that on top of the blue. So this should make a violet. So I don't know if you can see that very well because of the glare in my studio, but that is a nice kind of violet blue coming through and mixing, but not really mixing, with the red on top, and you could create that beautiful, wonderful purple or violet. So it is almost tricking the eye, I would say, in a way, with glazing. And it's usually really nice when you're painting flowers and you want to go thin layers so that you can capture all the layers of the petal underneath. Because the flower is not just, let's say, yellow. Sometimes there's a little bit of red underneath. So you could have red and then you can glaze maybe a yellow on top of it. Let's just try. Let's play with the yellow on top of the red. So you get that look, right? So sometimes some flowers are like that. You see it's yellow, but really underneath it is red. So that's the magic of glazing. And if that first coat isn't enough, then you wait for that to dry and then you reapply. And you could keep glazing forever. Like you could go up to 10 glazes, 15 glazes until you reach that point that, yeah, that's what I was trying to do. So thin layers. With glazing, it's all about thin layers. Impasto is all about painting thicker, which we'll get to in a while. So let's say I want to put the yellow on top of the blue, just because. See what happens. Get a little bit of the green. Don't see it very well. That's okay. Let's see if I can do it here. I have so much. Can you see that? You could see that the hue has changed. It has become a greenish blue. Let's try that again. Just gonna let's do it here. Can you see that change? So you could still see the blue underneath, but there's a yellow hint on top, which makes it look green, right? Because yellow and blue make green. This one had too much water, sorry about that. Same with this. So this one here. So if you want to increase the green, but you don't want to use green, you can just glaze yellow on top of blue, which is like magic. Okay, so let's try here. Let's try blue on top of red. It should make a purple or violet, really, not a purple. So let's try. This is blue. This is a very staining blue because it's phthalo blue red shade. So let's just bring it down a wee bit. I still have water on my brush. So I gotta. So that is a giantly purple. So you can still see the red underneath, but look how dark that is. That's a giant violet color right there. So what was I doing? Blue on top of yellow now. Let's try. Blue on top of yellow. So blue and yellow make green. That's the green I got. It's a nice yellow-green look. Totally different than this one, right? So I had the blue underneath, which is stronger than the yellow, so you get more of the blue-green. Here I had the yellow, and then I added the blue on top, or glazed the blue on top, so it gave you a yellow-green look. Stronger than this one. So you can have two different greens depending on what was underneath. Now the other magic I like about glazing is working with really transparent colors. Like this is a favorite of mine. It's transparent red iron oxide. Very, very good as well. It's by Golden. That's it when it's just with water. I'm just gonna add a glaze of the same color, transparent red iron oxide, on top of this. Still transparent, right? Very transparent, but it's starting to get enhanced now. I like this color because for me it warms up everything. It's a warm red and it's not a very strong red. So this color on top of yellow will give you that color. So sometimes it's just nice to do little swatches. And you could warm up this yellow by adding a little bit of that transparent red iron oxide. I love this for my landscapes. I use this a lot for grasses and the lakes and marshes. Because sometimes you put a yellow and it's too jarring, but you want to warm it up. So I use this to warm up. And maybe I'll do about 2 to maybe 5 glazes on top of yellow. Because sometimes this by itself is too weak and it's just so simplified. So it's nice when you can glaze maybe a yellow first underneath. Then it gives it a little bit of that brightness. And then you have to just subdue the brightness by adding this layer on top. So most of you, I don't know if you can see my painting on the right side. Can you see it, Linda?
Yes, we can.
Okay, so that's my beach scene in the Philippines. So this particular sky had many mixes of yellows, and then I've glazed transparent red iron oxide on top of that. And then I've warmed up this ocean floor, the water here, with yellow first, and then transparent red iron oxide glazed on top of that. And if you put transparent red iron oxide on top of the blues here, you can warm up the space as well. You see that? I just added that. And then here, this was again in my last class. Some of you were in this class. You can warm up the sky by just adding that transparent red iron oxide. Also here. Okay, any questions right now?
Yes, Carolyn had one, Marissa. She said, do you mix the paint and the medium together? I'm not sure what she meant by that, but I'm wondering if she, like maybe a pre-mix. I'm not sure, but I just noticed that you picked up the medium as you were adding with your paint and then thinning it down. So I'm not sure if she meant like a pre-mix.
Mm-hmm. I don't I always add glazing on top of a color that's dry, so I don't mix it together. Like I don't mix this. I think, am I answering that right?
Yeah,
Karen?
I think so, like doing a pre-mix.
Yeah. So I don't do a pre-mix. I just add it to my color as I go. So I add it. So this is my color. I add a little bit of the glazing liquid as I go and then apply. Does that help, Caroline?
She actually had to pop out,
Oh.
but anyway, it'll be in the video when she gets to rewatch.
Okay, great. Any other questions there?
Nope, that's everything.
All right. This one here is sepia. Thank you, Linda. Sepia is another great color to have. And gosh, this was my favorite for all time. So I have a giant one, and it's by Triart, which is a Canadian company from Kingston. For me, I just find that nothing compares to this. You know that song? Yeah. So nothing compares to this color. So it looks very black. But, okay, my paintbrush is still wet. When you add this color or glaze this color on top of yellow, you get some sort of like a brown with some yellow indications there. If you glaze this on top of a green, you would get a nice dark green. I don't know if you can see that. So sometimes when you're doing landscapes, you have those dirty, murky water on a bog or some wetlands. You could start off with greens, glaze some yellows and some blues, and then you can finish it off with sepia. Because the look that you will get the green, a little bit of the sepia, and a little bit of the yellow on top. And they're all mixing together, and they give you that certain look that you can see in lakes. So that's wet right now. So if I go on top of that, you're blending now. You're not glazing. So let's look at how it looks on top of the blue, green. Wow, that became really dark. Which could happen in lakes. You're still seeing a little bit of the first yellow that I passed on top of the blue there. See, that's looking good. Sometimes you need that look when you're doing a landscape that I do on a regular basis. Now this on top of the blue will give you that look. So what I'm gonna do is I will take a picture of this at the end of the presentation and send it to each of you so that you can see how it looks, and then you can refer back to the video so you'll remember what did she just do there. Okay. So how does sepia look on top of the red? Sepia has a little bit of a brown-green hue. This is how it looks, right? On top of red, you can still see the red. And maybe you might need to do that, but probably not something you would do most of the time when you're doing your landscapes. But if you're doing abstracts, maybe you can experiment with just glazes on top of glazes. That might be fun. Okay, so that's a little bit on glazing. Before we carry on, any questions?
No, there's nothing in the chat right now. We're all good.
All good, thank you. So the next medium, my next top medium is retarder. Retarder is a slow drying medium. So what it does is it decreases the drying time. As you know, acrylic dries fast. And sometimes you need to control it, especially if you're painting a big space, like you're doing the sky and you want some control. So it decreases the drying time. It allows for wet on wet application. So different from the glazing. Glazing is wet on dry. This one is wet on wet. So you're doing things really fast. You're blending as you go. You're blending two colors together, or you're just doing the sky, gradually diminishing the giant blue, dark blue into a more lighter blue as you go down in the sky. So You will need retarder for that. It softens the paint applications if you're doing clouds. Really nice to do that with the retarder because you can create that atmosphere that you see in clouds that are soft and moving. So that's why I like to use that. Oh, where did I go? Did I go back?
There's a question in the chat, Marissa, is so wouldn't the retarder increase the amount of time it takes to dry? And that question is from Annie.
Yes. Yeah. So it takes a while for it to dry. Maybe if you want to give it minutes, it'll probably increase the minutes by, let's say, 10 to 15. 10 to 15 more minutes. So because as you're applying paint, the paint dries also on your brush. I think some of you have experienced that. The retarder allows it to move a little bit more for about 10 to 15 minutes, so you can manipulate it up to a certain point, and then once it gets sticky, you have to stop, right? Let me go sticky. I did sign up for sticky. Okay, it does get sticky because after a while, acrylic is drying also on your brush. And if you put too much retarder, it's going to feel sticky. And then as you keep applying paint on top of it, you're lifting it up. I don't know if you've experienced that, but if it gets too wet and too full of retarder, your paints will not adhere to the substance, to the substrate anymore. It's just going to be lifting up. So you need to wait for that to dry, and then come back. So here's the retarder that I love. Golden also has a retarder. They do. I just find that it doesn't work with my style. I find that it's so sticky already. So I like the consistency of the Tri-Art because it's like baby oil and I can manipulate it more. If you do have the golden slow dry medium, what I would do is because it's so super concentrate, because they're really, really good, right? So I would do is I'd empty half of it, put it somewhere else, and then I would add a little bit of water to the slow dry, and then just mix it together so that it's not too sticky. So here is my retarder medium. It comes out clear. It's like baby oil. The glazing liquid comes out milky white, and this will dry into clear. But this one comes out clear already. Again, you can order. They do deliver. And they're based out of Kingston. So let's go and let's just demo blue. My blue's already drying. So there is my retarder. So I got a little bit of the retarder and loaded up my brush with the paint. And so I'm just going to go and apply back and forth. It's kind of... So again, this keeps everything together. When it dries together. The medium allows the water to evaporate and keeps the pigments tight, and they just connect. And so when they dry in a more finished and smoother and more harmonized way rather than just using water. So let's say I was doing the sky. Now I have to get white.
Astrid said that she has used the golden open paint, paints for slower drying time.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah. That's the other thing that I didn't mention is that acrylics do have open, and the open paints allow you more time to blend because it was really formulated for plein air artists who want to paint outdoors, but they're noticing the acrylic dries fast. So they did a lot of R&D, and they came up with an acrylic that doesn't dry quickly, and they entitled it open acrylics. I just find it's a little sticky for me. Does Astrid find the same, or?
I don't know, but Penny is asking, does the retarder work differently with heavy body versus regular or fluid?
Yes, it would act differently. So the fluid paint already has some retarder agents in it already. Let me rebrand that. Okay, so fluids, right? Fluid paints like this, right? They come in a nice bottle, great for mixed media, great for acrylics. They're already fluid in itself. So when you add retarder to that, you're really gonna spread your pigments apart. I would really hesitate using retarder when you're using this. Um, or if you do use retarder with it, just very minimal amount because this was already formulated in such a way that you could easily blend with it. You could pour, you could splatter immediately with this. So um, retarder, I would say, would be most friendly with the heavy body paints. So yeah, you can use it with this, but it's already formulated to move more already. So you can use it, but just very minimal. Does that answer Penny's question?
I think so. It looks like it. They haven't commented, but I'll bring it up if they do. Whoops. Yes, she said yes.
Yes? Okay. So here I am. I'm sort of gradually bringing the saturation down to a lighter blue. So we've got the dark blue straight from the tube with retarder, blending it down, adding a little bit of white so you get this mix. And then as you empty out your brush, it becomes lighter. So let's say I want to go back up here. I could just go back with my brush up there. And that just allows you more time to make the transition nicer. So that's with the retarder. You can make the transition nicer. But see, if I add more retarder, now it's not sticking anymore. You'll see that I'm pulling up paint and it's not sticking anymore. Let's say I'm blending, 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 and then I keep adding more retarder. It's not applying really well anymore. It's just sliding away. So you have to play with how much retarder you need to put in your painting before, and it's only by experience that this wouldn't happen. Because here I added a little bit more retarder so that you could see what happens. It's now just, at this point, you're like, it's a mess, right? So once you get to that part, you know you've added too much retarder. Let's do another thing here. I just pulled some ultramarine blue. So I'm not going to change my brush. I'm going to still keep the same brush. I'm not going to put retarder anymore because this is like super soaked in retarder. So it's already ready to go. The blending is already good. So I'm just going to keep blending, applying. application of paint is just back and forth. I'm not gonna touch my retarder. I'll go into the white because this is like super wet already with retarder, so I just went into the white, loaded my brush in a different palette, different section of my palette, and let's see if I can just blend this on top of that. And it's already blending. Now you'll feel it too, right? With your, as you're going back and forth like that, if it's getting like it's grabbing too much, then you can add a little touch and then you can apply again. So it's all about feel with the retarder, and again, it's experience. So that's a nice blend. Let's say I want to add a little bit more white. Let's go in here. So now that white became too white. Maybe I'll touch a little bit of this. Let's add a little bit of the blue. So you have time to manipulate it until you come up with the sky that you like. That's retarder. Okay. So wet on wet, we mixed white and blue. They came up with something like this. Let's say, I'm just gonna make another swatch here. So this is just with water. See how uneven it is? That's just with water. Yeah, it's just not applying really well. Just wanted you to see that. So let's just add a little touch of retarder. So this canvas has been gessoed for the demo. So it's actually picking up what I just put down, which is the gesso. So you'll probably notice that. So I just wanted to show you how I was applying down the paint, the blue paint, with just water. It was a little rough. And then so I applied paint with a little retarder on top of it just to make it smoother, and then it kind of smoothened it out a little bit there. It's a little uneven. It's catching my canvas. All right. But now I wanted to show you how you can improve or soften a paint application. So let's say I made this whitish blue. Let's say that's a cloud. I didn't want to go white because you're not going to see it, right? So let's say this is a cloud. Now you want to soften a little bit, right? Because these are all kind of hard edges around. You could just use your retarder. And you could just sort of play with that area to soften that area. Soften the edges. And then you can just go cross-hatching. And I'm just using retarder. I'm not adding more paint. I'm just using the retarder to just soften it. It's really great for clouds because as you go along and you're not adding any more color, the retarder will just sort of empty out your brush, and then you can achieve softer wisps in the sky. I did this with my last class. We were doing a winter solstice landscape, and that's how we were able to soften some of the cloud just by adding retarder to the edges of the paint, and it can just soften that. So there's nothing here anymore. I'm sort of emptying out my brush, and I can just soften with just the retarder. Really, you can just keep doing that. Sometimes that's all you need, right? Sometimes you're doing a sky and all you need is just that one wisp. You could just empty out your brush onto a section with just retarder, and it'll just give you that soft wisp that you just needed. That's why I like retarder. Any questions on retarder?
Nope, nothing in there. Nope, we're good.
We're good. We're doing well.
Well, you're doing a great job explaining everything. That's what it is.
You think so? Or people slept already?
Astrid said that was really nice for clouds.
Yeah, very nice for clouds. And you could see that in my easel here, right? So you could see some areas there that are just sort of like a light blue. They're just wisps of clouds is what I was trying to achieve there. And you could just achieve that with not adding any more color to your brush and just adding retarder to just give that illusion that something is there, but you don't have to add any more white to it, and it just gives it that nice wispiness. All right, so we're cooking along. So we can go from here. So we go now to my favorite medium too. Actually, these are all my favorites, okay? So gel medium. Gel medium, oh boy. So, okay. I have to break this down for you guys because there's so many mediums in the market, right? And with so many mediums in the market, you don't know what to get. So I'm simplifying it by just saying get a gel medium. And what I would get is a regular gel. And a regular gel, so this is my regular gel. It's a regular gel gloss. Again, it's in a medium. Because when you go to the store, if you still go to the store to buy, because I like going to the store to buy, and you read what they're saying, everything starts off the same. Ideal for glazing, extending colors, altering sheen, changing body, increase in translucency. Then you get another medium, and then it'll say the same thing. It'll say ideal for glazing, extending colors, altering sheen. So you go, okay, what do I need? So to simplify it, look at the title. Regular is how high it could go. Meaning, if you press down your knife, can you hear me still? Yeah?
Marissa, did we lose audio? Can you hear us? We can't hear you if you're talking.
Can you hear me now?
Oh, now I can.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. Sorry, I bumped my mic. Okay. So, regular means how high you can go. So let's say you press your knife, press it down, lift it up, that's how high the peaks would go. So regular gloss can go up to 1/2 inch, 1/4 inch. So you have, this is the gloss. When you press it down, you could go up to 1/2 inch, or when you lift up, you could go to 1/2 inch. Can you see that?
Yes, you can.
So that's how high it could go. Let's see. Sideways. So you could, you know what gel does to our hair before, right, guys? So, you know, way back in the 80s, so you could put gel on your hair and it's going to be so sleek and you could form it, right? So that's what gel does. You apply and it will give you some texture. So regular means it could go to 1/4 to 1/2 inch height. Okay? It's a gel. You know what gel does? It holds form and it keeps things firm. Keep it tight. Gloss, again, will be transparent. So this milky white color will dry clear when you mix that with color, right? So you won't see that when you mix that with the blue. It will become blue. Let's put that here, right? So there you go. There's a nice blue. And again, if I press down and lift up, that's the peak that it could create. It's 1/2 inch. It's really nifty. So my next class coming up in March is all about Van Gogh. How do you say that? Is that the right way of saying it?
Sounds good.
Let's just say it's Van Gogh. Or many people pronounce his last name differently. Let's just stick with that. So we will be painting with a knife, which means we will do a spring landscape solely with knife painting, which is going to be very interesting to do and very fun and very creative, because with a knife, and you're painting with a knife, you can't go into detail. So you'll be a little bit more freeing in terms of painting more loosely. There I go. I had to get that from the brain, which was kicking in for a while there. Okay, so regular gel gloss. So gloss again is transparent. So it economizes, because you saw how much gel I put in there, and I mixed it with a little bit of color, and you can economize on your paint, especially the ones that are super expensive. Now the mix would be 50-50. Don't go over than the color. You know what I mean? So if you have, so let's say you have this red, it's a squirt of red right there. When you're picking up your gel to combine with it, don't go more than that. So maybe same amount, right? So 50-50 would be the best ratio of mixing these two together. Because if you go over, you're gonna separate the pigments too much, and you do not want that. You want to keep it tight so that they dry all together, meaning the pigments are together, so you get the full extent of your color. So there I was able to double the amount of my red, which was very expensive because, as you know, quinacridone, they are, okay, series 3. In Liquitex, I don't know, I would say $16, maybe more. So there you go. Nice. So when we do flowers, that would be really so cool. Thick enough for knife painting, great for mixed media, gel transfer. Some of you have taken that mixed media class with me where we did gel transfers. I don't know, Penny, I think we did that together. Kay, really, really good for that, but that's not going to be discussed today. That's another class, but really, really good for mixed media. It's also great for collaging. You know what I mean? You can use it as a paste to collage. I'm here. I'm just looking for, let's say, paper. So I just tore off a piece of paper, so you can use that as well to collage. And you can use any brush. Can apply on this substance there. And then apply this here. Now, if it's very, very thin paper, like this one, you may want to use a different medium. You could use a polymer medium rather than the gel. The gel, however, can adhere heavier material. It can adhere thicker cardboard. It can adhere heavier paper, and you can use it with other mixed media. You could stick coins to your substance. You could have washers, nails, whatever you want to do. And I like the gel as well because you can use a lot of different styles of painting to create texture. So you can scrape, you can make indentations, you could cross hatch, you can make a tic-tac-toe, you can scrape. Normally, when I sign my name now, I sign by making an incision. So if I have something thick like this, I can use some sort of a tool and I can just write my name, right? So depends on how you'd like to sign your signature. You can make it thick like that and just carve your name out, which is nice. That's why I like the gel. Again, it's great for texture. Now there are different consistencies. So there's soft, regular is what I have. Heavy body, extra heavy body. If you want to just keep creating things with acrylic, you could use the heavy body. You can make different different um, color combinations and use the heavy body gel, and then you could even cut into it and use that to collage, which is fun. Oh, so many things you could do. I just find acrylic is just so, I love it so much. Finishes, again, there's gloss, matte, semi-gloss. I like the gloss because it's transparent. Matte, again, it has a little bit of a veil without the glossy finish. Semi-gloss. So I normally go with just a gloss. And if you're finding at the end of your painting experience that some areas are glossier than the others, depending on how it dried, you can unify this by varnishing. And let's say you don't want the gloss finish, you can varnish with a matte. And then this way it's not so in your face, it doesn't reflect light, then it's just matte and you could just subdue it down. Or you could do semi-gloss if you want. Normally I don't do semi-gloss. I would just mix gloss and matte. More gloss like 2% and then matte 1%, so that I get that a little bit sheen but not too much. So you can play with how you want your paintings to look once it's dry and once it's ready to hang. So I like the regular. I think I just talked to you about that. It's very versatile. I use it a lot for my paint. So when I paint too, I don't paint thick all the time. I paint thin. Yeah, what does she mean by that? She paints thin. Okay, so let's say this is the red, right? Let's put it there. When I paint, I usually don't paint with all that stuff. Sometimes I do, but for the most part, I paint thin. So what does that mean? I apply my paint thinly. So I would create a big batch. Like most of you know, I make my black. Okay? Some of you may say, no, I don't want to make black. Okay. But most of you know I make my black. So let's say I have my mixture here of ultramarine blue and burnt sienna. I have a big batch. I have regular gel to increase the volume, but I still only get this much when I need to, right? So I don't paint with the whole thing. I paint thin. And that's my style of painting, is I paint thin. But there are times that I do like to add a big splash of paint and just go crazy sometimes. I do that. So, but technically I am a thin painter and then I finish off thick. I don't start thick. You get that, right? I think you do. All right. We're almost there. Almost there. And again, the gloss finish is transparent. So we're now in the question and answer portion. Can I have some questions? Linda, are there any questions right there?
No, there's nothing in the chat. Margaret says thank you.
Margaret says thank you, thank you. That's great.
And I do too.
Excellent. Excellent.
I do have one question. So you said that with the glazing, that there's, hang on a second. There was a gloss matte, a satin, and what was the other one? The gloss matte and then the satin. And do you use mainly the gloss glazing? is your main one. Would there be an application that where you might use satin or the matte in a painting?
No,
No, so
no.
there's no need.
I
Okay,
just use the gloss all the time because it's transparent. So
okay,
I in my style of painting, I want to see the colors right away. I want to see the colors that I'm working with. So I don't want to see some sort of like a veil.
okay. Astrid has a question here. Is the satin varnish a good alternative to gloss? Gloss varnish, I guess.
Mm, it's because you don't want it to be too shiny. Is that what why, Astrid? If you don't want it to be too
You don't want
shiny,
it too shiny, exactly.
yeah, you could use the satin. It's got a sheen to it. I still find that if you it it it's still leaning towards more shine. The satin. It's leaning towards more shine than matte. Matte has no shine at all. Satin is leaning more to shine. So if you want to control how it looks, then I would suggest you do again a mixture that you make yourself, whether you maybe equal parts of gloss and matte, so you'll have to buy both. Then you could maybe have more matte than the gloss. I don't know. For the satin though, it doesn't have a veil. The matte has a little bit of a veil. And it's not too obvious, but it's there.
That's all that's in the chat right now. Oops. Penny said, I like the mat for collaging as the pages don't stick if I do it in a journal. And Astrid said, with regards to the Bart, I overused matte once and the painting went cloudy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and it again it depends too, right? For varnishes, that's another topic, but I don't use golden varnish. So what do I use? It's another brand. I use Gamvar, which is by Gamlin, and that could be used for acrylic. So I find that just more to my taste. And how does it look? I can find out. I can let you know. Hang on. So this is what I use. It's by Gamblin. Ooh, no, there. And it's called Gamvar Gloss. So again, they have gloss, matte, and satin. The satin is leaning more towards shine, and the matte has no shine at all. And just beware of the matte because it can make things cloudy. So that's why I make my own. So, but this one I find is just more workable. I find the golden one. I don't know if you've varnished with golden, guys, but I find it so sticky.
Mm-hmm.
So that's and this can be applied to acrylic and oil. So if you use oil, this is great as well.
Okay. Christine is asking, can I do a glaze over retarder once it has dried?
Yes.
Yes. Okay.
Yeah, once it's dry, you can glaze to your heart's content. So let's say you've done the sky, whatever, mixed media. Once it's dry, you can just keep glazing a color upon a color. It's really fun, actually. Even in abstracts, you could have so many colors coming up. It's just exciting to see what you can create. Oh, any more questions? It's almost 2:15, 2:30.
Nothing
Um,
in the chat, Marissa.
Not in the chat. So I just wanted to thank you guys for coming to this session. As a thank you, I just wanted to promote my next class. It's going to be in March, and again, that's painting thick with gel, and we're gonna kind of um, let's think of Van Gogh with that, and